Stephen A. Smith just dropped a bombshell on ESPN that has the entire WNBA shaking. He suggested that Caitlin Clark's treatment in the league could warrant a federal civil rights investigation. Let that sink in for a moment. The biggest star in women's basketball history, potentially needing federal protection from her own league. Here's the stat that ESPN won't stop talking about. Caitlin Clark received 6 flagrant fouls during her first season in the league. That's nearly double any other player in the league. The incidents aren't just basketball plays gone wrong, they're calculated, they're brutal, and ESPN's cameras caught every single one. Today, we're breaking down the dark truth about how the WNBA treated its golden goose, and trust me, what you're about to see will make you question everything about this league. Let's start with the incident that made headlines across every sports network in America. June 1st, 2024, Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky. Caitlin Clark is standing away from the play, not even looking at Chennedy Carter. And then, boom! Carter hip checks her from behind with such force that Clark hits the ground hard. The referees? They called it a common foul. A common foul. ESPN's cameras showed the replay from multiple angles, and it was crystal clear. This wasn't a basketball play. This was a shoulder check that would make an NFL linebacker proud. Clark wasn't even involved in the action. She was literally just standing there. After ESPN and every other major sports outlet replayed this footage nonstop for 24 hours, the league suddenly had a change of heart. They upgraded it to a flagrant 1 foul. Do you think it's too little, too late? Let me know in the comments. Chennedy Carter later tried to apologize, but Caitlin Clark understandably declined the apology.
Yes, Chennedy Carter finally broken her silence about the Caitlin Clark hip check.
She knew what that hit was about, and so did everyone watching. Fast forward to the playoffs. September 25th, 2024. Connecticut Sun versus Indiana Fever. DiJonai Carrington's hand makes contact with Caitlin Clark's eye during a play. Clark goes down. She's clearly in pain, holding her face on the court. The referees literally turned a blind eye. No foul called, not even a review. ESPN's post-game coverage showed Clark with a visible black eye. Carrington claimed it was unintentional. Clark, being the professional she is, agreed it was accidental. But here's the question ESPN kept asking. If this happened to LeBron James in the NBA playoffs, would there have been no call? Would there have been no review? The answer is obvious. And it wasn't just opponents going after Clark. The physical play got so intense that even Clark herself got caught up in it. She committed a flagrant 1 foul against Angel Reese during one of their heated matchups. The rivalry between these two had been building since college, and ESPN documented every single confrontation. But here's the difference. When Clark committed a foul, it was called immediately. When fouls were committed against her, the whistle seemed to disappear. Now this is where things get really serious, because it wasn't just fans noticing the pattern. ESPN's biggest names started speaking out, and they didn't hold back. Stephen A. Smith went on First Take and referenced a Wall Street Journal piece that described Clark's treatment as creating a hostile workplace environment.
I think it was a basketball play. I don't think it's much to do about anything. I think both of you are 100% correct in terms of not only attributing it to competition.
Think about those words. Hostile workplace environment. This isn't just about hard fouls anymore. This is about whether the Women's League was allowing its biggest star to be targeted, intimidated, and physically assaulted on national television. Stephen A. didn't stop there. He warned that if this pattern continued, it could lead to civil rights implications. He said, and I quote, "The WNBA needs to wake up before this becomes a legal issue, not just a basketball issue. When one of ESPN's most prominent voices is talking about federal investigations, you know this has gone beyond sports." Then there's Doris Burke, one of the most respected basketball analysts in the world. She called out the media for creating a double standard. She pointed out that the physical play Clark endured would be considered normal in the NBA, but the way it was being weaponized against her in the WNBA was different. It wasn't about playing hard, it was about sending a message. And ESPN's investigative reporting backed this up. They documented that Caitlin Clark was being fouled far more often than referees were actually calling. The data showed a clear pattern. Clark was absorbing contact that would draw whistles for other players, But somehow, when it came to the league's biggest star, the referees looked the other way. Let's talk numbers, because the numbers don't lie. Caitlin Clark led the entire WNBA in flagrant fouls drawn, and it wasn't even close. 6 flagrant fouls in a single season. The next closest player, 3. She literally doubled the competition in getting hit with flagrant-level contact. During the All-Star break, ESPN's coverage focused heavily on the officiating controversy. Analysts from across the network questioned whether the referees were protecting Clark the way they should be protecting any star player, let alone a player who was single-handedly changing the trajectory of the league. The inconsistency was staggering. In one game, Clark would get hammered driving to the basket, no call. In another game, a player would breathe on her wrong, instant whistle. There was no rhyme or reason to how the games were being officiated when Clark was on the court. ESPN's rules analyst broke down multiple plays where Clark should have been at the free throw line but wasn't. They showed side-by-side comparisons of fouls called for other players versus identical contact on Clark that went uncalled. The evidence was damning, and here's what made it worse. The WNBA remained largely silent. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert gave generic responses about letting players play and physicality being part of the game. But when your star player is getting targeted with flagrant fouls at twice the rate of anyone else, that's not physicality. That's a problem. Now let's zoom out and look at what Caitlin Clark actually did for the WNBA the moment she stepped onto the court, because this context is crucial to understanding why her treatment is so disturbing. Viewership went through the roof. Games featuring Caitlin Clark averaged significantly higher ratings than games without her. Her jersey became the best-selling WNBA jersey of all time. Teams saw their highest attendance numbers in years when the Indiana Fever came to town, but it wasn't just about popularity. Caitlin Clark backed it up on the court. She set the single-season assist record with 337 assists. She broke the rookie scoring record with 769 points. She became the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double, and then she did it again. This wasn't just a media creation. This was a generational talent who was delivering on every single promise and expectation. She was supposed to be the face of the WNBA's future. Instead, she became a target. The debate that ESPN kept coming back to was simple. How does a league treat the player who is literally saving it? Because let's be honest, Caitlin Clark brought more attention to the WNBA in one season than the league had seen in the previous decade combined. And yet, the league's response to her treatment was nothing. No special protections, no statements condemning the targeting, no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, allowing your biggest star to get physically brutalized on national television is bad for business. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert even found herself in hot water when she made comments about player earnings that seemed to dismiss concerns about how Clark was being treated. The message was clear. The WNBA was more concerned about not appearing to give Clark special treatment than they were about protecting their most valuable asset. So here's where we are. Caitlin Clark leads the entire WNBA in flagrant fouls drawn, 6. The next closest player, 3. That's not basketball. That's a pattern. ESPN analysts are speaking out. Stephen A. Smith isn't just calling it unfair. He's warning about potential federal investigations and civil rights violations. Doris Burke, one of the most respected voices in basketball, is demanding accountability. These aren't hot take artists looking for clicks. These are professionals putting their reputations on the line. And what has the WNBA done? Nothing. No statement, no investigation, no accountability. Just silence while their biggest star, the player who brought record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and mainstream attention they've never seen before, gets targeted game after game. Here's the real question nobody's asking. Can the WNBA survive without Caitlin Clark? Because right now, they're doing everything possible to find out. Stephen A. Smith said it best. This could become a legal issue, a civil rights issue. And when ESPN is saying that out loud, you know this has gone way beyond basketball. So what happens next? Does the WNBA finally step up and protect their players? Or do they keep pretending everything's fine while their golden goose gets brutalized on national television? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the WNBA is intentionally ignoring this, or are they just incompetent? And if you want to see how this story develops, hit that subscribe button, because this is just getting started. The WNBA has a choice to make, and honestly, I don't think they're gonna like either option.